So hello everyone, and thank you for joining today's webinar. My name is Jin Hao, and today we will be talking about Alteryx Designer Cloud powered by Trifecta and its push-down optimization capabilities on Snowflake. So before we begin, allow me to introduce Billigence. So at Billigence, we transform the way people work with data. We offer a blend of services which include consultancy, technology, tools, and resources to guide your organization to transform into a self-service data-driven business. So we are also proud to announce that we were awarded Snowflake Partner of the Year this year, and also we were also awarded Alteryx Partner of the Year in 2021. So the agenda for today is as follows. First, we will start by giving a quick introduction to Designer Cloud powered by Trifecta and how its push-down optimization capabilities on Snowflake works. Next, we will jump straight into Designer Cloud interface for an end-to-end demonstration of how we can use Designer Cloud's intuitive and low-code user interface to connect to data inside of Snowflake and quickly transform or wrangle it into our desired format. So once we are happy with our transformation step, we will then demonstrate how Designer Cloud compiles the transformation step into optimized SQL queries to be executed directly on Snowflake. We will then showcase how we can use plans in Designer Cloud to create and automate Snowflake pipelines. Finally, we will end off the webinar by discussing some of the best use cases to utilize Designer Cloud with Snowflake Data Cloud. So firstly, an introduction to Designer Cloud powered by Trifecta. So increasingly, we have seen that more and more organizations have been moving their data to the cloud to take advantage of the cost efficiency, flexibility, and self-service capabilities enabled by cloud platforms such as Snowflake. So as these cloud platforms continue to improve in flexibility and scale, organizations are also increasingly looking for a more modern self-service approach to transform their data natively or directly in the cloud to keep up with the demands of this new big data. So this is where the Designer Cloud comes in. So as part of the Alteryx Analytics Cloud, the Designer Cloud powered by Trifecta is an open and interactive cloud platform for data engineers and analysts to collaboratively profile, prepare, and pipeline their data for analytics and machine learning. So what this means is that besides having a cloud-first focus that combines infinite scalability with strong data governance and security, Designer Cloud powered by Trifecta also aims to move the ETL process back into the hand of the business users who have the domain knowledge of the data in order to reduce the amount of back and forth that is done between business users and data engineers in the traditional ETL process. So the next question that you might have is, how does this work? So as shown in the diagram here, data in various formats, be it structured, semi-structured, or unstructured, is collected from various sources such as databases, applications, spreadsheets, logs, and even IoT devices, and loaded into Snowflake via an ETL or ELT process. So once the data is loaded into Snowflake, we can then start by connecting to the data inside of Snowflake and then transforming it into our desired format using Designer Cloud's low-code user interface. So here, the important thing to note is that using Designer Cloud's push-down optimization functions, the data does not actually leave Snowflake. Instead, when we are transforming the data in Designer Cloud, we will only take a small sample of the data and then convert the transformation logic into SQL code. So this SQL code will then be executed directly in Snowflake, resulting in a secure solution where the data does not leave the database, while also taking advantage of the computing power of Snowflake warehouses. Finally, the data is now ready to be consumed downstream to be used for processes such as reporting and analytics, machine learning and artificial intelligence, or data onboarding. So without further ado, let's jump right into the actual demonstration. So moving on to the Designer Cloud interface, the main objects that we will be working with are flows. So flows are objects that allow us to bring in our data, transform them within recipes, and then generate our result. So here I will go ahead and just create a new flow, and I will give the flow the name customer orders. So once we have created our flow, the first thing that we will need to do is to connect to our raw data from Snowflake using Designer Cloud's built-in Snowflake integration. So this can be done by clicking on connect to your data here, importing your data sets, selecting your Snowflake connection, and then selecting your desired schema and table. So as we explore our data sets, we are also able to preview our tables in order to ensure that we are connecting to the right data sets that we are looking for. So in our case, because we have already imported our Snowflake table into Designer Cloud beforehand, we can simply just go ahead and select our data sets from over here. So just go ahead and add it to our flow. So when connecting to the data, Designer Cloud initially loads a 10 megabyte sample so that we can interact with our data set and set up transformations before we execute them across the entire data set using Snowflake. So now I'll go ahead first and delete this recipe. So here in this example, we have two data sets. The first data set is the orders data set, which contains information about our product orders, including customer ID, product ID, the quantity sold, the discount that was applied, the order date, as well as the price of each product. So on the other hand, we also have our customer data set, which includes information about our customers, including customer name, gender, age, home address, zip code, city and state information, as well as country. So here, what we want to do is to clean up the data and then perform a join on the two data set in order to link each order with the corresponding customer information based on the customer ID. So to start, the first thing that I will do is create a recipe for my orders. So I'll just add a new recipe and give it the name orders. So a recipe is a user-defined sequence of steps that will be applied to transform a data set. So here, clicking on Edit Recipe will bring me into the Transformer grid. So within the Transformer grid, we can see that the data is presented in a tabular-like grid and also includes a data profile bar, which allows us to quickly understand the data type and quality of each column. So for example, here, if we change the order date to a date time format and then specify the format of day, month, year. So here we can see that we can visually see that there are a number of mismatched values in our data. So if we click on the red bar, Designer Cloud will automatically highlight to us the rows with the mismatched values. So here we can see that the invalid values or the mismatched values are because our dates are not in the same format. So to fix this, all we have to do is to click on the drop down here and then go to column details. So within the column details overview tab, Designer Cloud will automatically generate a summary, relevant statistical information, as well as histograms that break down the data into subcategories, allowing us to get a more in-depth summary of our column data. So if we click on the Patterns tab, here we can see that Designer Cloud is actually smart enough to recognize all the different date formats that we have in our data. So to standardize the dates, we can click on the desired pattern that we want to keep, and here Designer Cloud will instantly suggest various ways that we can transform our data. So here, what we want to do is to select our first convert option. So hovering over the options like so would allow us to get a small preview of what the data will look like with the transformation step applied. So now I'll go ahead and apply my transformation step. So once we add our step to the recipe, we can see that our dates are all standardized into our desired format. So now going back to the transformer view, we can see that all our values in our date column is valid now. So the next thing that we want to do is we want to convert our discount column into a numeric data type in order for us to perform a simple sales amount calculation on it. So to do that, the first thing I will do is lock the column type into an integer. So here, because of the percentage sign, Designer Cloud is actually not able to recognize the value as an integer. So to fix this, all we have to do is to highlight the percentage sign here And once again, Designer Cloud will automatically suggest various transformation steps for us to apply. So in this case, I will select the first option to replace the percentage sign with an empty string. So here in the transformer view, Designer Cloud will also show us a preview of our new column. So here I will go ahead and add this step to the recipe. So once again, if we look at our data quality bar, we can see that there are still many values that are not valid. So if we click on the gray part here, we can see that it is because we have many missing values in our data. So in this case, the missing values actually represent that no discount was applied to the sale. So to fix this, we can select the set suggestion to turn the missing values into a 0. So once I apply this step to my recipe, we see that all our values are now valid. So now the last thing that we want to do is to create a new column to calculate the total sales amount after the discount has been applied. So actually there are many ways to do this. One of the ways is to click on the drop down of any of the columns that we will be using in our calculation, and then selecting calculate and then custom formula. So in the formula text box, we will key in the formula price times quantity times 1 minus discount over 100. So for the column name, I will give it the column name sales underscore amount. So I'll go ahead and add this step to our recipe, and then we will again have to change the data type into a decimal. And now we see that all our values are valid once again. So now that we are done preparing the orders data, we can go ahead and join our orders data with our customer data. So going back to the flow view, again, I will create a new recipe for my customer data set, and this time I will give it the name customer orders. So once again, I will click edit recipe to go to the transformer view. So here, before we join our two data sets together, another thing that I want to do is here I would like to split my city and state data into two separate columns. So again, there are many ways to do this. So one way to do this is if we look at our city and state column, we notice that our city and state is actually separated by a comma. So to split the columns, all I have to do is I have to highlight the comma, and then here Designer Cloud is then smart enough to know that we want to split the columns on the column delimiter. So here I will go ahead and select the option and then add the step to the recipe. So now we see that our city and state data has been split into two columns. So now I will go ahead and rename the columns. So this will be city and this will be state. Yep. So with that, we are now ready to join our two data sets. So to do so, we can select the join icon in the top toolbar over here. So this will bring up the join configuration pane. So the first thing that we will have to do is to select the data set or recipe that we want to join to. So in this case, we will want to join to our orders recipe that we have created earlier. So as you can see, Designer Cloud has automatically suggested the join keys based on the column names. So in the configuration pane on the right here, we are able to change the join type or even edit our join keys if we wanted to. However, in our case, because this is already what we want, we can simply hit next. So here, I will select all columns except the duplicated customer ID columns. And I'll go ahead and click review and add to recipe. So here we can see that our join has been successfully completed. So if we were to click before the recipe, the join recipe step, we can see that we have only 9 columns. However, after our join, we have a total of 16 columns. So as you can see, in just a few clicks, we have actually managed to perform all the transformation that we want without writing a single SQL code. So Designer Cloud's active and visual data profiling tool allows us to explore our data table in depth, making it very easy for us to quickly understand the content of our data and identify any potential data quality issues along the way before we actually apply the data transformations process to the entire data set. So finally, once we are done with our transformation, we can go back to our flow and then create an output to run in order to utilize Designer Cloud's pushdown capabilities to generate the SQL code to run our transformation job on Snowflake itself. So here I'll go ahead and click run, and this will bring up the run job page. So here within the run job page, the first thing that I want to do is to edit my publishing action. So here, Designer Cloud allows us to actually output our data in various file formats, including Avro, CSV, JSON, and Hyper. So instead of saving our output as a flat file, what I want to do here is to actually write our transformed dataset back into a new table in Snowflake. So here I will go ahead and again select my Snowflake connection and then select the schema that I want to write my new table to. So here, if I wanted to, I'm also able to create a new table in the Snowflake database. However, in this case, I will just write my output to an existing table. So here, I'll just go ahead and select truncate the table every run and then hit update. So this will bring me back to the job setting page. So next, because we want to use Snowflake Data Cloud as our running engine, we will need to select our running environment as Spark plus Snowflake. So here, other options include whether or not to profile our results and access the data quality rules, whether or not to validate our schema, whether to fail our job if the dataset schema change, or whether to ignore our recipe errors. So additionally, there is also an option for the job to write SQL scripts before the data has been ingested or after the data has been published. So this may be useful for capturing logs of the data changes in the database. So now, once we are ready, we can go ahead and run our data. So just give it a moment. So now that our job is running, we will be able to see our job progress, including our execution stage and any output data that has been created when running the job. So as we run our job, the data transformations and functions that we have set up in our flow recipes previously are being converted into equivalent SQL queries. So any transformations or functions that are not natively supported by Snowflake will be converted into JavaScript user-defined functions. So Designer Cloud also optimizes the SQL for performance before running it. So it will do things like execute filtering tasks as soon as possible in order to reduce the total compute load. So give it a few moments for it to complete running. Yep. So as seen, the process is fast and efficient with the job completing in only 1 minute. So by clicking on the view Snowflake job here, we are able to pull out the SQL for the job, which I have here. So from here, we can see how Designer Cloud's visual user interface has allowed us to easily produce a high performance SQL query, even if we did not know how to write a single SQL code. So finally, once the transform table has been created in Snowflake, we can then query it within Snowflake and then easily connect to the data to be used for downstream processes. And additionally, going back to our Designer Cloud interface, another very useful thing that we can do here is that we can actually automate the process of the data transformation using plans. So in Designer Cloud, plans provide a mechanism to build robust data pipelines in which a sequence of flows can be scheduled for periodic execution. So for example, in this plan that we have created, we have actually scheduled the flow task that we have previously created to execute daily at 12 a.m. So this actually allows us to ensure that our stage customer orders data is constantly updated to include the latest customer order data. So additionally, once the flow executes successfully, we will then be running a separate flow, and this will actually allow us to take the newly updated stage customer orders data and output it as a hyperfile ready for users to load the dataset into Tableau. So this may be very useful for users who may want to analyze the data on Tableau, but do not have access to the Snowflake database. Yeah. So coming back to our slides. So from our demo, we can see that by leveraging on Designer Cloud's push-down optimization capabilities, Designer Cloud actually eliminates the need for us to write complex SQL statements or code, enabling analysts, data specialists, and other domain experts to focus on the data and quickly transform data of varying sizes for use in downstream processes, increasing their overall productivity. So instead of using their own compute engine, pushdown optimization allows users to leverage the power of Snowflake's massively parallel processing compute clusters, allowing data transformations that are up to 20 times faster. So Designer Cloud's support of Snowflake also leverages the scale of the cloud, enabling data transformation at any scale from a few megabytes of data to exabytes of data. So finally, using plans, Snowflake data pipelines can also be automated with job scheduling so that the right data is in the Snowflake database when you need it with no manual intervention required. So before we end, I would like to spend some time to also talk about the 3 most common use cases in which Alteryx Designer Cloud, when paired with Snowflake Data Cloud, can break down traditionally siloed processes and improve data preparation efficiency for organizations. So the first common use case would be the reporting and analytics use case, which we have briefly demonstrated in our hands-on demo. So when preparing data for reporting and analytics, functions such as filtering, aggregating, and subsetting of the data is needed to make the data fit for downstream consumption in visualization platforms, compliance and regulatory reports, and other analytics processes. So Designer Cloud makes data quality, data governance, and collaboration easy and more efficient with features such as transform by example, pivoting and group by functions, as well as the ability to share and edit flows and plans, allowing users to collaborate easily, just like how we would collaborate on, for example, Microsoft Word online. So the second use case for Designer Cloud would be data onboarding. So this is a very common practice for data service providers in industries like healthcare, marketing analytics, and supply chain. So onboarding data often involves discovering anomalies, working with unfamiliar data, standardizing format and column names, and also restructuring the data to fit a specific schema. So Designer Cloud can help accelerate these tasks with features like active profiling, rapid targeting, smart cleaning, and also enhanced joins. And last but not least, Designer Cloud is also very useful for artificial intelligence and machine learning processes. So, and in addition to the regular data cleansing and preparation, data scientists would often also need to engineer features for AI and ML models to make sure that the models have the right features in the right structure. So Designer Cloud eliminates the frustrating and time-consuming tasks related to the common AI and ML data preparation functions with built-in capabilities such as one-hot encoding, scaling, standardization, and normalization. So this allows the data scientists to perform the necessary transformations and data quality checks without the need for code or debugging, improving the time to deploy and accuracy of the models. So with that, we have come to the end of the webinar, and thank you for your time, and I hope that it has been a meaningful one for you. So now I'd like to open up for any questions that you might have. Right, so we have one question here. So can Designer Cloud connect to Shopify? Yes, Designer Cloud can connect to Shopify. Maybe I can show you on the interface itself. So going back to the interface, if we go to connections, create a connections. So here we can see that Designer Cloud is able to connect to a wide variety of data sources. So this includes applications like Shopify or SharePoint, CRM systems like Salesforce, SAP, your standard databases and API, and even marketing solutions like, for example, Google Analytics or Google Ads. Yep. So the next question is, are there any limitation to push-down optimization on Snowflake? So yes, there are actually a few limitations to the push-down optimization on Snowflake. So for example, the first one would be all your data sources and all outputs that are specified in your flow or recipe must be located within Snowflake. And secondly, there are also some data wrangling functions that are also not translatable to SQL and thus not supported for push-down optimization on Snowflake. However, the good thing is that even if there are some steps that are not supported by the push-down optimization, the Designer Cloud application will actually still execute each recipe in Snowflake until it reaches the step that cannot be executed on Snowflake. So at that point, that data is then transferred to the default running engine where the remainder of the job is executed. Yep. So I think there are no more questions. Yep. So with that, we have come to the end of the webinar. So thank you for your time.